If you're into the modern anime space, you may be familiar with popular mangaka Tatsuki Fujimoto, the creator behind works such as Fire Punch, Look Back, and his most popular series, Chainsaw Man. Many of his series have gone on to be highly regarded among fans and critics, and the success of those series speak for themselves. Fujimoto, while his two serialized works, at the time of this video, are very well known and have amassed big followings, is also known for his one-shot stories. A one-shot, also known as yomkiri in Japanese terminology, is a short one-off manga story that typically spans the length of a single chapter. Think of one-shots as the manga version of short stories that you may have read in high school literature classes. It's a great way for aspiring manga artists to start off in manga creation, and many of the most popular mangakas or franchises of today started off with these one-off stories. In 2011, Fujimoto submitted his first officially published one-shot, Niwa 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 Niwatori ga Ita, or A Couple Clucking Chickens Were Still Kickin' in the Schoolyard. Fujimoto would go on to create many more one-shots over the years, even into the years of his serialized works. Many of his early one-shots were compiled into a 2-volume anthology in 2021, titled Fujimoto Tatsuki Tan Penshu, localized as Tatsuki Fujimoto before Chainsaw Man. All of the stories featured in these 2 volumes were written by Fujimoto during ages 17 to 26, and before Chainsaw Man had begun serialization on December 3, 2018. Years later, in November of 2025, an original net animation adaptation of the anthology series was released, titled Tatsuki Fujimoto 1726, and all 8 stories from both volumes received a short anime adaptation, with 6 different animation studios and 7 different directors. It's safe to say that these one-shots, while not Fujimoto's most well-known works, are very well known to his fans, and there's a decent amount of coverage on these stories on the internet. While the anthology series did cover a lot of Fujimoto's early published one-shots and make them readily available to those interested, these aren't all of the one-shots that Fujimoto wrote during his years of being 17 to 26. During the years of 2012 and 2013, there were 3 one-shots by Fujimoto that were never officially published in any form. These one-shots were Kami Hikouki, or Paper Planes, Fukushu no Ken, or Sword of Revenge, and Seigi no Mikata, or Sense of Justice. These 3 one-shots did not make it into the 1726 anthology series and were only ever submitted to competitions. Paper Planes was submitted to Shueisha's 3rd Crown New Comic Award and was awarded the Jury Special Award. Sword of Revenge was submitted to the 4th Supreme Comic Grand Prize Season 2 by Jump Square and was selected to be a finalist. And Sense of Justice was submitted to and a finalist of the 10th Supreme Comic Grand Prize Season 2. Despite all of these one-shots being acknowledged in competitions, the full stories were never officially published and were assumingly only viewed by the editors and judges. This has led to these one-shots being seemingly unable to be located anywhere and are considered lost media. Fujimoto fans have been searching for these one-shots for years, with the oldest Reddit post mentioning them being from December 3, 2020. The links in the Reddit post direct to the pages of Sense of Justice and Paper Planes on MangaDex, an online platform that aggregates translations of mangas and also manhwa and manhwa. We're not going to get into the legality of sites like these, but there are many other manga aggregator sites that also feature pages on Sense of Justice and Paper Planes. The only information that is available on these sites are what competitions they were submitted to, with Sense of Justice's page incorrectly displaying a preview of Fujimoto's one-shot Imoto no Ane, and Paper Planes' page containing a single image of the one-shot. Strangely, none of these sites feature a page about the last one-shot, Sword of Revenge. So if not even the biggest unofficial sources hold this missing content, then how can we get a hold and view these lost one-shots, if it's even possible? Let's start with Paper Planes. We know that it was submitted to Shueisha's 3rd Crown New Comic Award in May of 2013, and Fujimoto would have been 19 at the time of the competition. Thankfully, the results of that competition, and many past ones, are still available to view on the Jump Square website. The prize for the Jury Special Award was 150,000 yen, and the one-shot seems to have been 39 pages long. The entry for Paper Planes gives some information about the one-shot, the synopsis being, Mizu and Shun live next door to each other and spend their days happily together, communicating by flying paper airplanes to each other's houses. However, when Mizu decides to move out and transfer to a new school, they get into a fight over a trivial misunderstanding and are unable to make up. Eventually, 6 years pass, and it's time for the two to meet again. The only other piece of information about the story that's available is a single page that was shared on the entry, where Shun can be seen throwing a paper plane out of a window. This presumably is Shun because the Japanese text on the page roughly translates to, and by roughly I mean Google translated to, "My house and Mizu's house are about 10 meters apart. Paper airplanes were used as a means of communication." There's really not much to analyze from what little of the story that's here, but the basis does feel in line for something that Fujimoto would write about. Looking at the art of this single page in comparison to Fujimoto's art nowadays, you can really see the difference in how he came to draw his characters, yet there's still a sense of familiarity when it comes to how he draws his backgrounds and use of grayscale. The Fujimoto work that closest resembles the art style depicted here would probably be Love is Blind, a one-shot published in Jump Square 19, also in 2013, and is readable in Tatsuki Fujimoto before Chainsaw Man 1721. The entry on paper planes also features advice from the competition judges and comments from the editorial department. The judges' comments about the story are pretty vague, stating that Fujimoto clearly expressed what he wanted to depict and that it was also a straightforward story. The judges also state that Fujimoto should work on varied facial expressions and composition, which is funny in comparison to the editorial department's comment that thought that facial expressions were too extreme to the point where it felt unnatural. The editors also encouraged Fujimoto to work on his drawing skills and his characters. If anything, going from those two comments, it seems this one-shot would have been one of Fujimoto's more tame stories, which is interesting considering the narrative progression of a lot of them. Unfortunately, that's all of the official information that I could find on Paper Planes, all of which was admittedly already known and publicly available on the Lost Media Wiki. Shoutouts to them for hosting this information. A lot of other sites or discussions surrounding the one-shot only regurgitate the same information. There is a single mention of Paper Planes in an interview with Fujimoto between him and his editor, Shihei Rin. Remember that name. Rin had been working with Fujimoto for about 8 years at the time of the interview, which was posted on July 2nd, 2020. Paper Planes was only mentioned in passing about how Rin remembered helping Fujimoto on his early works and felt that they were substantial enough to be submitted into contests. As Fujimoto grew, Rin realized that he had come into his own style. So while there is a very limited amount of information on Paper Planes, it seems that the one-shot was, overall, received decently well from the critics who got to read it. We'll come back and discuss the potential leads, but let's move on for now. Sword of Revenge seems to be the least known Lost Fujimoto one-shot in terms of awareness because out of the many discussions of this topic that I've found, Sword of Revenge is hardly talked about at all. It isn't even listed as a work on Fujimoto's Wikipedia article. Recall that Sword of Revenge was submitted to the 4th Jump Square Supreme Comic Grand Prize Season 2, which took place in April 2012. The winners of this competition would win 100,000 yen, however Fujimoto only placed as a finalist. Unfortunately, the results of the Supreme Comic Grand Prize competitions seem to no longer be up on the modern Jump Square website, but there are archives on the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine that have preserved some of these pages, at least up to 2018 before the pages of the competition were taken down sometime in the years following. The entry of the one-shot contains the title, who it's by, the number of pages, synopsis, and comments from editors and judges, similar to the Crown New Comic Award entries. The one-shot is listed to be 31 pages long and has a very short synopsis. Wraith and Zeph are two monsters that killed half of humanity. Raid befriends Wraith, but this one-shot has the least amount of information about its story out of the 3 one-shots, and the synopsis' allusion at the end is pretty vague. The preview of the one-shot shows an entity with horns carrying a greatsword, with dialogue from an out-of-frame character saying, "Monster? No, it's a human." The next panel shows the human confronting some sort of monster and proclaims that he's come to kill it. The final panel shows the monster not taking the threat seriously. His dialogue is roughly translated to, "Kill me? I see." The title is called Sword of Revenge, so perhaps this supposed human has come to kill the monster with his sword for revenge. Pretty on the nose, I know. Looking at the judges' comments, the advice from Yoshiaki Sukeno, the mangaka behind Twin Star Exorcist, explains how he was impressed by the storytelling and drama, but felt that the artwork wasn't up to par. Though he was surprised to find out that Fujimoto, at the time, was only 18, and said that if he kept working on manga, he could definitely achieve great things in the future. Akio Iyoku, editor-in-chief of V-Jump at the time, praised the art for having a raw feel and felt as if it was breaking the mold by trying not to fit into a specific genre. The final comment from the editor's department praises the ease of readability in the one-shot and ideas, but felt as though the writing was predictable. The one glaring discrepancy about this entry is, if this is supposedly a Fujimoto work, then why is his pen name not being used on the credits? To that, the answer might actually be pretty simple. Fujimoto had a former online alias when he was younger named Nagato is Me, where he used this alias across many different platforms and even had his own website. Nagato is Me is generally accepted to be the same person as Fujimoto because of his online activity and earlier art style that contains similarities to his self-published works as Nagato is Me. NIM, or NIM, is credited as the submission for this competition, and it's possible that it's just an abbreviation for Nagato is Me. On top of that, this one-shot might have actually been referenced in the 2020 interview with Shihei Rin and Fujimoto, where Rin found an old email from January 1st, 2012 discussing a title change for a similarly titled story called Yusha no Ken, or The Hero's Sword. Apparently, the title of the story was formerly called Yusha Seido, or The Hero System. While neither of these titles exactly match any publicly known stories from Fujimoto, it's possible that even The Hero's Sword was another working title before the final submission was public in April of that year. Lastly, I want to point out that the entry says the submission was from the Yamagata Prefecture, rather than Tokyo Prefecture like the previous entry, but it is known that Fujimoto graduated from Tohoku University of Art and Design in Yamagata Prefecture in 2014. So if this one-shot was submitted around 2 years prior, I think it would have made sense as to why that is listed on the entry. The last of these lost one-shots from the 2012-2013 period is Sense of Justice, which was submitted to the 10th Jump Square Supreme Comic Grand Prize Season 2 that took place in October 2012. Fujimoto placed as a finalist in this competition, similarly to his submission for Sword of Revenge. Just like the previous two one-shots, we're able to get a synopsis and some comments from the judges and editors. This one-shot is listed as 31 pages long and was submitted when Fujimoto was 19. The synopsis for Sense of Justice reads, "In a world where all monsters have been defeated and there's no longer a need for heroes, Goto and Akihara have disbanded their partnership and are thinking about their future, only to be attacked by a former hero they once fought alongside." Just as a side note, both Google Translate and DeepL say hero as a singular noun, while this page on AnyList has translated it into plural form. But besides that, it's the same, and my limited Japanese can't verify which is more accurate. That aside, the synopsis seems ripe for some interesting, maybe predictable storytelling. Unfortunately, this is the only one-shot out of the three whose preview isn't saved on the Jump Square website or the Wayback Machine, but AnyList does have a single page of the one-shot, which presumably might be what was displayed on the page of this competition, though it's not confirmable if this even is from Sense of Justice. The way that the character is drawn on the bottom panel bears a striking resemblance to Agni, the protagonist of Fujimoto's Fire Punch, at least to me. The advice from Takeshi Konomi, the mangaka behind The Prince of Tennis, comments on how the story wasn't thoroughly explained and needed some more reader-friendly structure. Haruhiko Suzuki, an editor for Weekly Shonen Jump, found the character designs lacking in variation and their expressions flat, but did enjoy the simple story. The final comment from the editor explains how he sees where Fujimoto wants to take the story, but ultimately doesn't yet have the artistic skill to fully realize it, and he needs to work on backgrounds. Now, the question remains, how can we find these lost one-shots? Because these one-shots were only submitted to the competitions hosted by Shueisha, the main way that we could reasonably and officially get our hands on them is just if Shueisha decides to publish them, either separately or in a third, admittedly shorter, anthology volume for the Tatsuki Fujimoto Before Chainsaw Man series. Shueisha is probably the only entity that has the rights to publish these one-shots, so it's really all up to Hope if they decide to publish them or not. It wouldn't be unreasonable for Shueisha to publish these one-shots because a few of the one-shots featured in the Fujimoto anthology series were submitted to competitions and won awards. The first one being Sasaki-kun ga Judan Tometa, or Sasaki Stopped a Bullet, which was submitted to the 5th Crown New Comic Award competition in July of 2013, and won a special jury award of 200,000 yen. The other one-shot that was submitted to a competition and featured in the Fujimoto anthology series is Koi wa Mo Moku, or Love is Blind, which was submitted to the 9th Crown New Comic Award competition in November of 2013 and won the monthly top prize of 300,000 yen. Now, of course, waiting and hoping for Shueisha to release these one-shots isn't exactly a very hands-on approach into getting them any sooner. I do have one other idea on how we might be able to get not the one-shot itself, but maybe some more information about it, if someone has the guts to do it, because I am not very socially confident. Remember Shihei Rin, Fujimoto's editor? Rin began working for Fujimoto after he found him through finding his A Couple Cluckin' Chickens Were Still Kickin' in the Schoolyard one-shot that was submitted to a competition sometime in late 2011. Rin has been Fujimoto's editor ever since, and is also fairly active on his Twitter account. Maybe if someone reached out, he'd be willing to provide some new information about those one-shots, such as details about the story and such. While Rin did used to work for Shueisha, he left in 2022 and became a freelance editor and even started up his own manga platform called Mixed Green. Obviously, since Rin no longer works for Shueisha, I don't know if there's any way he could make a push for these one-shots to be published, but even just some new information would be nice. I should put a big asterisk on all of this though, because this is really betting for a best case scenario, and I'm sure there are way more hurdles to go through to try and get these one-shots out, like agreements of the submissions or even just contacting people, but that's just my thoughts. I know the Lost Media Wiki suggests Fujimoto's old Nagato Is Me website as a potential lead, but after going through it, I don't think that there's anything there that relates to these one-shots that were submitted into contests. So unfortunately, we're at a bit of a dead end when it comes to the search for these lost Tatsuki Fujimoto one-shots, but I thought it'd be great to at least make a video and consolidate the information for people unaware of this lost media of a beloved mangaka. Hopefully this video can reach the right people, you know, the master sleuths, and maybe we can see these one-shots one day. Given how unique of a style Fujimoto has, I find it fascinating to see the evolution of his works and how his art and writing changed over time. And while there's a lot of preserved works that can be analyzed on that front, it would still be nice to read these one-shots for ourselves and see how they hold up today. I want to give a shout out to the Lost Media Wiki for the page on Paper Planes, and I want to give an extra big shout out to this site called Fujimoto.fish. I came across this when I was like 3/4 done with the script of this video, and it is literally a site dedicated to cataloging all of Fujimoto's works, past and current, and there's even a ton of information about his previous alias, Nagato Is Me, and all that. It really helped me finalize the segments because I couldn't for the life of me find any information in English about when these competitions took place, and there's some conflicting information on the internet about the dates of these one-shots. But lo and behold, Japanese Wikipedia has them right there. So yeah, thanks Flying Turtle 69. I'll leave a link to a Google Doc that I made with these sites and all of the sources that I got about these one-shots if you're interested in doing your own search. And for the first time in my YouTube career, I am asking you to please share this video around to whoever, if you can, so that maybe these lost one-shots will one day end up being public for all to enjoy. Maybe I'll see you next time, and take care.